Hello everyone. Sorry I've been gone a while. You might be wondering what the hell is happening in the Michael and Gang Fantasy League. Well, as my fantasy coach used to say, fantasy is about the fundamentals. So let's recap some basic facts. There are 32 NFL teams. Each team has a quarterback, a running back, a secondary running back, and 3 predominant wide receivers. Your running backs run the ball, your wide receivers receive the ball, and your quarterbacks, of course, quarterback. Now, over the course of a game, an NFL team such as the Buccaneers will only get to run about 60 offensive plays. Of those 60, a little more than half are passing plays, over 30% of which don't even result in a complete pass, and around 25 of those 60 are rushing plays, with the average run only being about 4 yards. So on any given Sunday, there are a limited number of opportunities for each wide receiver to catch the ball and for each running back to run it. And those opportunities are primarily reserved for the team's most talented players, that usually being their number 1 wide receiver and their number 1 running back. For example, in week 1, out of 32 passing attempts, 9 attempts would go to Mike Evans compared to the 6 that would go to Egbuka and Shepard. And out of 23 rushing plays, Bucky Irving would run the ball 14 times compared to Rachaad White's 2 runs. And so when we drafted our players on that fateful September night, we would make our picks based on expectations of who would be each team's top receivers and running backs. However, over the course of the season, things can change quickly, as such is the nature of life. In week 3, the GOAT Mike Evans, the team wide receiver 1, would suffer a hamstring injury, so Emeka Egbuka would step into that wide receiver 1 role the following week. Chris Godwin would also return from an injury the season before, now he's the team wide receiver 2. In week 4, Team Baylor's Bucky Irving, the team running back 1, he'd have a good game, but he would also suffer an injury, so the following week Rachaad White would fill in the running back 1 role. Week 5, Egbuka filling in as the wide receiver 1. You can see the fantasy implications already. Boom! 31.3 fantasy points on your head top for Nick Devin. Also in week 5, Godwin would get re-injured, so Shepard and Johnson move up in the depth chart. Week 6, Rachaad White, remember now in the running back 1 role, he'd have a good game, 17.6 fantasy points for Kraft Jackson Cheese. But also in week 6, Egbuka, wide receiver 1, would have to leave the game early with a hamstring injury of his own. So after week 6, 7. Egbuka would still suit up and play in week 7, but in week 7 it ends up being wide receiver 2, Tez Johnson, who has the best game. Hurdle and a spin move and 15.8 fantasy points. Let's hear what he has to say. Now week 7 through 10, the depth chart stays relatively consistent, and Rachaad White does well in his role as running back 1, but he doesn't do exceptional. And so what we see is that in week 11, Sean Tucker ends up taking over that RB1 role in a breakout game. He scores 34 fantasy points and is picked up by Nukesters that same week. So what have we learned? What fundamentals have we gleaned? Okay, 1, because of the violent and variable nature of football, the NFL is a wheel of chaos. And a wheel that fantasy teams can capitalize on, like Kraft Jackson Cheese did when he picked up Rachaad White, like Nukesters hopes to do by picking up Sean Tucker, and like Nick Devin was able to do when he first drafted Emeka Egbuka. And once that wheel of chaos starts, it never ends. Just looking at the weeks ahead, Bucky Irving, previous running back 1, is looking to make a potential week 13 return. Mike Evans, previous wide receiver 1, also looking to make a return in week 14. And Baker Mayfield this past week in week 12 also revealed to be injured with a shoulder sprain. So that whole team is fucked basically if he's not playing healthy. Anyways, this all might seem a little overwhelming, and that's totally understandable. But luckily, you guys have the weekly fantasy newsletter. And on that note, here is your weeks 5 through 11 newsletter recap. Woohoo!
It was the cost, and she said he flossed, and she bought a loft, and she moved to Compton, then moved to Spain. She does this often, I'm trying to soften her in her clothes, and her shirts, and her blue brown jeans. Right in her sauce, and her name is Bloss, and she bought a boat just so that her folks can't enjoy the scene. Her mind is woke, and she trying to smoke, and I'm trying to focus the coast while I party. That's my type. That's my type. That's my type. That's my type. She want the fame and the top back. She want it loud with the feedback. She want a deep back. She looking mean on the stick shift, steady and she clean when she hit that. Like on the green. She want her name big on the screens. I want a back swim cross the sea. She said if I don't come back Tuesday, take my things back to my hometown, let 'em know that. That's my type. That's my type. She said, I ain't never been from the shy to Dubai, but I'm down for the ride. Maybe we can get your breast expedited. Don't you worry, honey, baby, I'm an expert at this. If you want to see what we can exercise it. I just wanna be your homeboy. Listen to the website, sometimes I can hire one off now, fire. We don't need nobody to confide in. Let me put you on some game of wine. Tired of these fucking pacifiers. Let's get flyer, we not tired. Let's go higher, got some high, cause street desire, girls if I get tight, tight, that's my type. Tight, 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 that's my type.
Just gonna do a quick little outro. It's Black Friday, so I'm back in my childhood room. Here's an old picture of me dressed up for Halloween, hitting the T-pose. But anyways, I just wanted to say for this Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for you guys. You know, when I was in middle school, I would do fantasy with complete strangers online, and they never watched my newsletters. Also, thankful for Amon Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 1 for the Lions, for getting injured yesterday. And I'm also thankful for Jameson Williams, wide receiver 2 for the Lions, for filling in for Amon Ra St. Brown. Also happens to be my flex play. You did great. You should never really cheer for an injury in fantasy, because these are real human beings. But I really need to make the playoffs. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Spend some time with your family or friends in between all the games that are happening. There will be a Week 12/Week 13 fantasy newsletter. I don't know when or how. I might take another break or something. But until next time, this has been your Michael and Gang Fantasy Newsletter.